And my job was processing the data that we collected on the arrays, figuring out what if it was making noise that it shouldn't be making, why is it making that noise? Where is it coming from? And how do we fix it?
Welcome to the Cowles Ventures Podcast.
That's cool. All right. Well, let's just jump right in. Yeah?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Go crazy. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you so much for coming on. I know it's kind of a weird ask. I'm always like, I never know how people are going to react when I ask them to come on the podcast, but I've had great reaction thus far. So yeah, thank you for taking some time out of your day. But yeah, if you just kind of want to go brief overview of who you are, what you're working on, previous role. I mean, you've had a crazy history in one sector and now on a completely different route. So
right turn.
Right turn. We'll just get into it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for having me on. When I first met you and Sky in September, and it was the day before I retired, my official retirement.
Was that day before?
Yeah.
Maybe you mentioned that. I don't remember that.
I did a little presentation at
awesome.
the meeting, and I talked about tomorrow's I'm retiring.
That's the day.
From the federal government.
That's fantastic.
And that night, you invited me to be on the podcast. And I was like, all right. He says that to everybody.
No, I mean it.
But then
I mean it.
You actually invited me, and I started watching episodes, and I watched a handful of episodes now, and you've had some really impressive people on. So I'm very thankful.
You're just adding to the list.
I appreciate that, and so I'm thankful to be here, and I'm excited for this conversation because how often do you get the opportunity to talk about your favorite thing without somebody rolling their eyes or trying to change the subject?
No. That's what I tell that to people all the time. And this has kind of turned into a special kind of, unknown benefit of doing this is like the companies that we are already invested in, I get to learn more about them and on a deeper level of what they do, which is awesome because it's like literally my job. And then on the flip side, the companies that we're not invested in and people in the region or whatever, I mean, what other chance or opportunity would I have to talk to you for 45 minutes, hour and a half, like whatever, straight, and just about what you're doing in your life? I mean, you would never get to do that ever.
Yeah, I love it.
It's like the one opportunity. I mean, especially to now, day and age of, my phone's constantly buzzing with emails or notifications or whatever. And just like, I don't even know where it is. And it's just like so nice to just be like, all right, this is what we're doing and talk about it and like get all the details. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess a little bit about my background and where we're started. So big picture is we're starting a company called AutomateIntelligence.ai. That's the parent company. And the main product that we're building is called Knowledge Site.
Okay.
Well, that's, we're going to dig into that.
Yeah.
But how did we get there and where did I come from? Like I mentioned, retired officially from the federal government, from the Navy in October.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you, but I was a civilian. I always have to make that clear.
Well, yeah, but it's all,
I feel like it was service to our country in my mind.
For sure. I mean,
it was federal service.
Yeah.
And,
service is service.
And I was there. I was there for 26 years.
Especially that long of service. I mean, that is incredible. I always kudos to people that are in jobs for that long because now, especially, it's like, 2 to 3 years, people my generation are like, they get antsy, right? And it's like, oh my God, I got it. I've been here way too long. It's like, that just, yeah.
But honestly, 25 years in the federal government isn't necessarily that long. I've worked with plenty of people that have been there like 35, 45 years.
Yeah.
Right. And worked with some of the best people in the world.
Yeah.
It's a great job. So that's a whole story, how that happened. 2025 was a crazy year for us. So at the beginning of 2025, I was up for big promotion. I had been the director of the Data Science and Analytics Lab at the Naval Surface Warfare Center, Carter Rock Division.
Okay.
That's my official position.
That's a mouthful.
It was. And I was up for big promotion. I was going to be moving from my department into the CTO office. Okay. And the Trump administration took over, and they froze all hiring, but they also froze promotions. And so I knew I was going to be stuck for a while. Yeah. And then famously, I don't know if you've heard about it or not, but with Doge and Elon Musk, they sent out in January, a letter to the entire federal government. It was kind of dubbed the fork in the road letter. It was basically a carbon copy of the letter that he had sent out to everybody at Twitter when he bought Twitter, and said, if you quit today, at Twitter, he said, you quit today and we'll pay you for 3 months.
Yeah.
The federal government letter they sent out in January said, you quit today or in 2 weeks, and we'll pay you to the end of September, the end of the fiscal year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And why?
That was like severance.
What? And how does
Why
that make
did
sense?
they do it?
Yeah. Why does that make sense?
They were trying to reduce the size of the federal government. That was, the primary
okay.
goal.
So I see in their eyes, like, yeah, okay, we're going to eat it for the next, 9 months. But after that, we'll have a much slimmed down. But then you're still, well, I guess you quit. So then they would have to figure it out anyway. Crazy. Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of debate that can be had over the efficacy of that approach.
That's pretty wild.
And
okay.
Are you targeting the right people, or are you targeting the people with the most knowledge, or are you targeting the people with the least knowledge?
Well, right. Because there are people like you that are like, yeah, I've put in my time for a long time. That kind of sounds nice.
The people that were like anywhere close to retirement, it was a no-brainer.
Like, see ya.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was not. I was 53 at the time, so I'm not even close to retirement.
Yeah.
But so I did the math and looked at that proposal in January, and I said, no, that doesn't make sense for me. And I loved my job.
Yeah.
The DSA lab director job was a fantastic job. My whole career has been wonderful. The projects that I've got to work on were fantastic.
That's unique. I hope.
I think so.
It is.
I think
the
is.
amount of people, and obviously I talk to all kinds of people on here now that will say what they're doing now is awesome. Like, I finally, they either they quit their job or they just started it or whatever. And so they're all like super hyped up about what they're doing now. Mm-hmm. But they're not maybe so much looking back. I have never had anybody be like, a lot of them will say, yeah, they were all good experiences and I learned a lot and blah, blah, blah. But I would argue the majority would say, yeah, no, it wasn't all awesome for sure.
Right.
Like, I didn't always love what I was doing.
That makes sense. But I think I really do think I was lucky.
That's
because
fantastic.
I really did have a great job.
Yeah, that's great.
And I didn't necessarily want to leave.
Yeah.
I left somewhat reluctantly.
Yeah.
And I'll get into that a little bit more. But so I said no in January. And then in March, Secretary Hegseth put out another announcement just for the DOD. Mm-hmm. And this time around, they said, same deal, we'll pay till the end of September if you quit, like at the end of the month or whatever.
Sure.
But also, if you qualify for early retirement, you can take early retirement.
Oh.
Which you have to have at least 20 years, and I had 25.
So, yeah.
And so I did the math again.
Yeah, I can only run
And
those
there
again.
was this confluence of events, right? So there's another part of the story too, which is my wife, Jill, who's fantastic. She and I have very similar jobs. She works at CHAS. Do you know CHAS?
Yeah, Chess Health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Community Health Association of Spokane.
Yep.
She's the director of digital innovation at CHAS.
Okay, yeah.
So we have very similar.
Great.
I was the director of data science, and she was the director of digital innovation.
God, what a power couple. What a duo.
She's amazing.
I'll have her on next.
And she's my biggest supporter and investor.
That's
and
great.
we're business partners together. We have multiple businesses together.
That's fantastic.
And once you're at Chaz long enough, you can take a 3-month sabbatical at half pay. And she'd scheduled that like 6 months before.
Nice.
So she was already planning in April to take her 3-month sabbatical.
Yeah.
And she was going to go drive around the country and visit national parks.
Yeah.
And I was going to stay home and watch the dogs. And so we had planned to go on a vacation right at the beginning of her sabbatical, like go to Hawaii or something.
Sure.
And then she'd go on her trip, and I'd like fly out, use all of my frequent flyer miles that I've been building up because I work in DC 1 week a month.
Oh, nice.
And go visit her wherever she was at.
Yeah.
You know, when she got someplace cool, I'd go fly over there and spend the weekend with her or
awesome.
something. But then the Doge thing happened, and I was looking at that. I was like, wow, I could go on this trip with my wife, right? This
How
is for
awesome.
a once in a lifetime. Well, hopefully not once in a lifetime, but you know, never had a 3-month trip, road trip before.
That's pretty sweet.
And also our daughters, Chloe and Emma, they're doing fantastic. They're killing it. Chloe's graduated from the University of Washington.
Nice. Go Dogs.
Yes. And she was, at the time she was teaching English in South Korea.
Oh my gosh.
And so she's, out of the house and on her own. And now she's teaching over in Seattle. And Emma, she's a junior at Gonzaga now.
Okay. Go
And
Zags.
Go Zags. And so, they're independent, on their own. The school's paid for. And so it was like all this confluence of events. And it was like, there's no better time to start a business than right now. Because I was entrepreneurial from a very young age.
Yeah.
You know, I always had, you know, mowing lawns and always scrapping, and I always had multiple jobs, and all the way up till I graduated from university. And so, in fact, when I was in grad school, I had my own consulting business. I was paying for grad school by doing scientific consulting for a company down in Moscow, Idaho. They were building scanning laser spectrometers that they were putting on drones to go fly around in war zones and detect chemical weapons.
Okay.
And so I was writing the code for the laser spectrometer.
Wow.
And so I'd done consulting, you know, I'd had businesses. Had built professional websites for political campaigns.
Wow. I
I was in student government, so I was kind of like politics adjacent in student government. And so I'd built, you know, a website for a state senator and stuff like that. And so for me, I had this like entrepreneurial spirit deep inside of me, but then I went to work for the government, which was kind of surprised me. But I don't regret it because the projects that we work on are amazing, right? And so having the opportunity then to leave service and start my own company, that was a unique opportunity.
That's
and
awesome.
Sat down with Jill and we talked about it, and we're like, this is crazy, this is crazy, let's do it, right?
That's awesome. That's so cool. Okay, so I gotta ask, what was the route? What national parks did you guys go see?
So we did 16 states and 17 national parks and 4 national monuments. So we kind of went the southern route. So we went down and did Utah and the north rim of the Grand Canyon, which has since, we were in the lodge that burned down since then.
Oh my gosh.
And then we went through New Mexico and went to the Acoma Pueblo, and we went over to Missouri, and we went to visit a friend in Missouri, Aaron. And then we went to down to Arkansas. Well, I'm not going to explain the whole route, but we went all the way over to Cherokee, North Carolina, to the Indian Reservation and the Great Smoky Mountains. Yeah. And then it was super hot. It was, mid-July. Yeah. And we were like, should we go north to New York? Should we go south to Florida? But it was everywhere over there was hot and muggy. Yeah. And so we're like, let's hightail it to Colorado. Yeah. So we turned around, came back to Colorado. It was hot in Colorado. And then we're like, where do we want to go? Because this whole trip, like, Jill's plan was to have no plan. Like, she's like, all I do is make decisions every day.
Right. I just want
to just like, we'd plan like 2 days ahead, right? We didn't make any reservations. So we had planned to go on the trip to Hawaii at the beginning of the trip, canceled that trip, and we went and bought a van. So we did all this in a brand new van. We drove off the lot. And so we just lived out of the van. We took our dogs with us. We have 3 dogs. We have a 100-pound lab. Nice. We took him and our 2 little dogs with us. And
That's awesome.
It was wonderful. God,
it's a dream. That's awesome. That's so cool. Okay. So, I mean, what kind of projects did you work on for the government? Because you didn't, well, I guess, could you explain your last role? Director of?
The Data Science and Analytics Lab. So at Carter Rock Division, it's about 3,600 people. Wow. Carter Rock Division is one of 9 divisions within the Naval Surface Warfare Center. I can't remember how many are in the Naval Surface Warfare Center, but then there's also a Naval Undersea Warfare Center, and both of those warfare centers are part of Naval Sea Systems Command. And Naval Sea Systems Command, with the civilian and the military side, is about 80,000 people.
Wow.
It's big.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I was at I went to visit NVIDIA, and Jensen Wang was giving us a presentation for DoD Day down there. And he's like, you guys know the DoD is the largest organization in the universe, right? and I hadn't really thought about it that way, but he's like, yeah, he's right.
It's big.
It's the biggest organization in the universe.
Which is crazy because I feel like, you know of, right? Underground organizations, but
or other planets.
Or other planets, exactly. When you think of, government workers or, the DoD especially, I mean, you feel like given it that it's that big, you would run into more people that worked in government, worked in politics, or all that stuff. And I feel like, I mean, at least my life, I've run into very few. Maybe that's just because, like, obviously, if I lived in DC, then everyone's working for the government.
I know what you mean, because I grew up in Idaho. I lived in Spokane since 2008. And I feel like I hardly know anybody in the tech community in Spokane.
Yeah.
Like just through Jill, like I know healthcare people and I know real estate people, and that's about it.
Yeah. No, it's interesting now. Yeah. 80,000. That's big. Anyway.
So my department was 3,600 people, and there's seven departments within our division, and they're all stovepiped, right? And they all have it's about half scientists and engineers, so about half the people. And our division had more PhDs than any other of the other divisions. And so very science and tech heavy, but they really had a culture of focusing on hiring engineers. They didn't hire a lot of mathematicians or some physicists, but not a lot of data scientists, And so there was a real sparsity of machine learning and AI talent. And so kind of independently, me and my department and the CTO office, they came up with the idea of let's form a team where we can pull the best and the brightest from across all of the departments into one team that can work horizontally across all the stovepipes and make better utilization of these skills, right? So the team itself was anywhere from 9 to 15 people over time. Led it for 3.5 years.
Wow.
And people would rotate in and out, so they'd rotate in and build their skills and then take it back to their department. And so I worked with the comptroller's office, I worked with the command, I worked with the procurement and business office, and there's 3 different scientific departments that did, signatures, materials, and seakeeping, right? So all of this naval science, really heavy duty stuff. One of the best parts of my job was, I'm an acoustician. My degrees are in mechanical engineering. And so I worked with some of the best people in the world in acoustics. It was fantastic. And the acoustics community is a very small community.
Niche.
Yes. But the people that I worked with were famous in the acoustics community. So having those people as coworkers is fantastic, right? And so the projects that we got to work on ran the whole gamut. So, we did automation with the Power Platform, in Microsoft platform, and anywhere, routing documents that needed to be approved, and but all the way over to, we worked on machine learning projects. We were doing massive, multi-input, multi-output, nonlinear regression optimization problems.
Yeah.
One of the really cool projects we worked on was in the materials department. They would do material testing on different alloys, and so they'd put these test samples in a fatigue machine that would vibrate them over a billion cycles or something, and then they would slice them into pieces and take pictures of them and look for stress propagation cracks. And so we helped them write the code to go do the image processing to detect the cracks in each of the images, but also disambiguate the same crack that showed up in multiple images.
That's awesome.
Things like that.
And so once they would do that, I'm sure they were testing, what were they testing these alloys for? They're testing,
testing them for
rigidity.
For the material properties that best suited the different uses that they were going to be used for in chips.
Oh, okay, in chips.
Yeah, so it could be ship hulls, could be, propellers or whatever.
Yep. Got you. Okay. God, that is awesome. Okay.
So my job before that was in acoustics. And so for 21 years, I helped design propulsion systems for our nuclear submarines.
Okay.
So we do acoustic testing on the submarine fleet in 3 places in the world: in the Bahamas, in Alaska, and in North Idaho.
I was reading that because what's the bay?
Bayview, Idaho.
Bayview, Idaho. Yeah.
So now we're from here.
Right. Yeah. We have some family friends that have a sailboat on Bayview, and people, because it's how deep is that lake?
So Lake Pend Oreille we operate in the south part of the lake, and there's over 26 square miles where it's over 1,000 feet deep.
Oh my gosh.
It's just a big bathtub.
That's crazy.
The river comes in from Clark Fork, it comes in and then goes out past Sandpoint out towards the dam. And so it's all glacially formed. And so it's got steep walls, from the mountains on both sides. not a lot of houses along the south end of the lake, and the bottom of it's just flat silt. And so you could easily put a full-scale submarine in Lake Pend Oreille and drive it around.
Yeah.
Our submarines are a quarter scale.
Okay.
So 115 feet long, 10-foot diameter.
Oh my God. And that's a quarter.
Quarter scale, yeah.
I had no idea how long submarines were.
So our attack submarines, the Virginia class, are 365 feet long. Wow. And then there's the Ohio class are like almost 500 feet.
That is insane. Yeah. And they're quarter scale in operating at the bottom of Pend Oreille Lake.
And we have static models that we just lower down, but then we have a self-propelled model that the whole front end of it is batteries.
Yeah.
And it's got a 3,000 horsepower electric motor in it, and it's completely autonomous.
That's wild.
We've got acoustic transducers on the bottom of the lake.
Yeah.
And so kind of like your cell phone pings cell phone towers to triangulate its position. Yeah. We did that acoustically with a grid of transducers on the bottom of the lake. So the submarine always knows where it is because it's communicating with the bottom of the lake. And so we program in flight paths. Yeah. And we have arrays of underwater hydrophones, microphones, underwater hydrophones in the water listening to the submarines. And we program the flight path, and it goes and drives back and forth between the arrays. And my job was processing the data that we collected on the arrays, figuring out what if it was making noise that it shouldn't be making. Yeah. Why is it making that noise? Where is it coming from? And how do we fix it?
That's crazy. That's wild. And it's just right there. Hour and a half drive.
Yeah.
Go see some submarines. Do you ever do civilian demos, or can people go and watch, like, dropping the submarines in, or
not that? Yeah. We have over 25 years that I was there. I think we had 3 open houses where you could come in and see the models out of the water. We take the models out of the water every night. Okay. Yeah. Most days. Yeah. And so you could go and see you can't go see the propeller. Right. You have to have clearance for that. But some of the models you can go and look at the propellers.
That's so cool. Okay. So what was, going back to college and all that, what was the path that led you into that? What was the draw? What was, why did you like doing that? How did that get all started?
A lot of that was just life happening. Just luck. I was in mechanical engineering at the University of Idaho, and my advisor knew the director of the base, and I was applying. When I was graduating from my master's degree, I was applying to jobs in Phoenix and Seattle and Portland, and I was looking at aerospace primarily, and I sent a resume up to Bayview, and they asked me up for an interview, and I got to live in Sandpoint, Idaho. So I was I lived at the base of Schweitzer for 8 years.
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
That's so cool. I love asking people that because more often than not, it's a story like that. Similar to mine. Mine was like happenstance, fell into my lap. This is how I'm here. But yeah, there's very few people that go throughout life and find that, I want to go work for this company. I apply to that company and I get that job. And then and it's almost never that way. It's always some story of I was, on an elevator and I was talking to this one guy, and then it's just like this to this to this. It's always some crazy story like that. And I just love that story for every person, because every person, it's like a unique, special circumstance. It's fantastic.
It was pretty much pure luck. It was my first job out of college.
That's awesome.
And the funny thing is, though, I always knew I wanted to be an engineer. Yeah. I think I'm lucky in that, since I was 6 or 7, I knew what I wanted to do.
That is lucky, especially that young.
And I didn't realize it till later in life how rare that is. Yeah. And so now I appreciate it, that I was singularly focused from early on. And I was writing code. Wrote my first program in BASIC when I was 7 years old.
That's crazy.
In 1979.
Yeah, that's so wild.
On my dad's Commodore 64. That's awesome. Right. So I knew I was going to go. When I first started looking at going to the University of Idaho, I love buildings and architecture. So I thought I was going to go into architecture, but I'm colorblind.
Are you really? Fully? What?
Red, green. I'm red, green deficient. So I always say my vision is 8-bit. Monitors, you can see millions of colors on monitors, but on the old CRT monitors, you just be able to turn down the bits. And if you turn it down to 8 bits, it's 48 colors. Yeah, exactly. And so I always knew that I wanted to go into engineering. And so I thought that was, that part of it wasn't luck. I thought that I wanted to go into architecture, but I looked at the curriculum for architecture students, and there's a lot of art.
It's like color theory and like
all of
this
that.
stuff.
And I looked
You're
at that and I was like, nope,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to do that. So
No.
I just pivoted to engineering.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, 7 years old, writing your first code. I mean, like, I figured now that's probably a lot less uncommon. It's like kids are, there's like after school programs,
All
or
the digital
there's
natives.
a whole, yeah, exactly. But I mean, yeah, back then to know something that wasn't very mainstream and to just pick it up and be like, yeah, I just love this. It's awesome. That's fantastic. Okay. And then so you go through your whole career, you're loving this, you're doing that, you get this crazy offer, awesome road trip of a lifetime. And then when did the idea for Automate Intelligence at .ai, when did that come about?
So probably, the first round of the fork in the road letter that came out, like caused some introspection. And so in January, I was like, if I left, what would I do? Right. And I was like, I was looking at it and I knew for sure that I didn't want to do consulting. Like a lot of people, leave government service and come back as a contractor.
Yep.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
Or they do consulting for the government, or they start a company and, provide services to the government.
Yep.
But I knew for sure that I didn't want to do something that didn't scale independently of my physical time.
Yeah.
I wanted to build something that would be making money if I was sitting on a beach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so as much as I probably would love doing consulting, I knew that I didn't want that to be my business model.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can hike up your hourly rate, but you'll never, again, like you said, you're never going to be not working and then correlated to making money.
It doesn't scale.
It just doesn't work.
And so then I was like, well, what would I do then? Right.
Yeah.
And so I mentioned I'm colorblind, right? And so I have methods of compensating for that. I also have a memory like a goldfish. And so I compensate for that by like documenting everything. I have notebooks and notebooks and notebooks from work and from my personal
I
life.
think that's a guy thing.
Probably.
I have to write everything down. It's like, my girlfriend, my mom always telling me, they're like, oh, could you do this? Pick up this. I'm like, yeah, for sure. 5 minutes later, forget, just gone.
Yeah. So I've always kept notebooks, and I've got a notebook full of business ideas, right?
Awesome.
But also I had all of these ideas from work, right? Because I'd been the director of the DSA lab, and the job of the DSA lab and the director specifically was we would meet with any team within the organization. So any team that wanted to could request a consultation. And we would go, at bare minimum, we'd meet with them for 1 hour, hear about their project and what their challenges were, what their needs were, and figure out how to integrate machine learning and AI into their workflows. Yeah. That was our primary job. There's 3 things: training, and doing consultation. And so I got to meet over the course of 3 years. I met with like over 60 teams.
Wow.
And so we got to see like all of these different use cases. But and of course, because we're data scientists, we like kept the data on everybody that we're meeting with, right? And so over time, I start building up this database of what are the technologies, what are the core technologies that we're seeing over and over again, and what are the needs, across the department. Yeah. And there was 4 main primary technologies that we identified, but the one that was like the most ubiquitous that like everybody was clamoring for was the ability to connect a large language model and interact with their documents. Yeah. Everybody wanted that. And we're in the federal government and the Navy specifically, and we work on, a lot of us worked on unclassified systems, but most of us worked on classified systems also. And so we built systems that would work on networks that are isolated from the internet, Yeah. And so you gotta do a lot of work. And so we containerized everything so that we could make it easy. We'd build it on the unclassified side and then port it over to the classified side. which, so we learned that technology, and the security aspect of it, the data governance was always super important, right? And so, we were working with teams on helping connect large language models to their bodies of documents. And one of the main tools that we also built was within one department, all of the departments, their primary work product was typically a report, a PDF. And it's, a scientific technical report that's probably, 100 or 200 pages long of the write-up, and then maybe 300 or 400 pages of figures and charts and tables, right? So, 400 to 800 page reports were common. And I was prime author or co-author on at least 11 of those over my career, right?
Yeah.
And so we were working on building a system for the department that could connect all of those documents to a chatbot, but also we were working on building a system that would make writing a report automated, kind of like doing TurboTax. You know how TurboTax walks you through the questions. You start with this section, walk through these questions to the next section, walk through these questions. We built that for writing reports.
Okay.
And it would, start with a template and then look at all the previous reports and build the next report. So that, to me, that was, those were the most ubiquitous use cases that I saw over and over again across all of the departments. And I was like, I know that everybody wants this in the private world too.
Yeah.
And I had lots of meetings with Microsoft and Oracle, and IBM on getting contracts with the Navy for us to deploy systems that could do this. And I can't mention any numbers, but to deploy like IBM Watson to 1,500 people is a very large number.
Yeah.
And so we really don't have that much. Like, we're the federal government, we're the Navy, but we don't have that kind of money in our budget. And so we just started building it ourselves.
Yeah.
So I stole stuff from Microsoft Research, Google, MIT. I took research from all of these in the public domain. And I'd have a meeting with Microsoft and I'd be like, when can I buy this, in your products and be able to deploy it on our classified network? And they're like, not yet, So we were developing tools that were ahead of what you could buy from Microsoft.
Wow.
And so when I left the federal government, I had all of those architectures that we had built in my head, but I couldn't take any of the code with me, obviously.
Yeah.
So when I left, I went on the road trip and didn't think about any of this while I was on the road trip, like on purpose.
Yeah.
And so when we got back at the end of July, I started working in this in earnest in August. And so I've been building that whole system since August.
That's crazy. And then
From scratch.
Yeah, that is nuts. Because we just started using Copilot for our kind of internal. I haven't really used it that much, but from what I can tell is it's more of it will find the files for you and it will kind of look and give you like a summary of like some stuff. How does what you're building kind of compare with that system?
Right. Great question. So there's a couple things that make Knowledge Site unique from Copilot or GPT 5.2 or Claude, right? So I always have to remind myself, I really want to focus on the value proposition of Knowledge Site. And like, cause I'm so geeky, like I'll dive into the technology and, we can go as deep as you want on the technology. I can talk about that all day long, but try and focus on the value proposition of Knowledge Site. But I do think it's valuable to talk about, what are the architectural differences that make it unique.
Yeah.
And so the primary architectural differences is one is it's designed for a lot of documents, right? If you have a private OpenAI account, you can upload like 10 documents at a time.
Yeah.
And Copilot, I've worked with it a little bit on my personal account. My wife uses it at her work. And I don't know, are you an Apple guy? Or are you a Microsoft guy?
It's funny. So both, I guess. It's kind of weird because I see the pros and cons for each, because I have a MacBook for my personal computer, just because when I went to college, that's what everyone was getting. So I was like, well, I must also need a MacBook. And so that's how I got started on the Apple, and I've got the phone. I used to have an Apple Watch. I just upgraded actually to a Garmin. So I'm a Garmin guy now. But yeah, I was in the whole Apple ecosystem. But then for work, we're Microsoft. So we have, OneDrive, we use like Microsoft Office Suite, Copilot, loops in all that. So for us, kind of similar to what you're saying is we had that issue with, okay, we have all of these, not classified, but like private, confidential files. And we want something to look at them and stay like within our organization, not public. And so when we upload, we have to be really careful when we upload or ask questions to GPTs, because that obviously then blasts it to everyone else.
That was a huge deal in the Navy too.
Big. And so, yeah, with Copilot, and again, I haven't really messed around with it too much, but I think we're kind of moving more towards that way, because they can do it on our internal server through OneDrive and keep it all enclosed. Yeah. But I have not messed around with it that much, so I don't know the, differences, pros, cons, whatever.
So you use Outlook at work?
Correct. The long story is just saying, yes, I'm a Microsoft for work.
You do both. I haven't used Apple, so I don't know how good at search is. But
for mail, it's terrible.
For email,
email, it's awful.
It's horrible.
Awful. Which I don't know why, but it is.
And Outlook is awful. Outlook email search is terrible.
That's the only thing.
So's the Microsoft or the Windows Explorer search is horrible, right? And so my analogy is that as good as Outlook search is, that's about how good Copilot is at doing the same types of things that Knowledge Site does.
I think the only thing I've used Copilot for thus far is it is better if you use the Copilot little chat feature to find emails. That's honestly what I use it for now, is because I'm like, I'm looking for this email. We talked about this. It might have this file. And it's like, here's what we think you might be looking for. And so for that, it's really great. But I think
that was their primary use case.
Well, yeah, I don't know, which doesn't make any sense. Like, just make the search feature better. Like, obviously, if you can do that, you could have just done it a lot easier in the search bar, but whatever.
Right.
Whatever.
So the big differences about Knowledge Site are, designed. So the documents, the system that I was building for the Navy, the primary project we were working on had like 15,000 documents.
Oh, documents, not pages.
Documents.
And each of those are thousands.
400 to 800 pages.
Okay.
And so, we're building the system right now to work with tens of thousands of documents, and I'm working on the infrastructure to go up to millions.
Jeez.
So one of the projects that I'm working on right now is actually downloading all the Epstein files. I wrote a script to go and download all the Epstein files. Yeah. And so I'll talk more about it in a second when I get to some of the other architectural pieces, right? So that's the first design point, is that, lots of documents. And so you can upload basically your whole corpus of documents for your business into this. Also, the main design decision we made was to focus on prompt engineering or context optimization, right? And so as opposed to like post-training or fine-tuning a model, right? And the reason to do that is because if you have your corpus of documents within your business and you're like, I think conceptually most people think if I'm going to hook a language model up to my documents, I'm going to have to fine-tune the model on my documents.
Right.
And you can do it that way, but it's brittle.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you add new documents or as soon as a new model comes out, you gotta retrain your model, right? And if you've chosen to use a big model, that can be computationally expensive. Yeah. So even if especially if you're in the cloud, if you own GPUs, maybe it's not so bad, but it could be expensive to fine tune, depending on how large your corpus is and how large the model you're using is. So I made that decision early on to go with focusing on prompt engineering, because Microsoft Research has multiple papers where they were focusing on medical, but they showed that with multiple stages of prompt engineering, you can get as good or better accuracy in your responses as with a fine-tuned model. And the advantages that provides you are when you add new documents to the system, it doesn't break or create blind spots. And the whole system is designed so that you can use whatever model you want. Like, because new models are coming out like every single week
hour.
for the last 3 years.
Right.
It's been this torrent of development that's happened in AI over the last 3 years. And, you know, you just like, you don't like the model you're using, wait 5 minutes, right? Just like the weather around here.
Exactly.
And so specifically designed to be able to rapidly transition to different models. The other big architecture difference is we use a graph database. And so when you upload your documents into Knowledge Site, the document gets stored in a graph database. We do the text extraction and the chunking and the vectorization of your documents. The vectors all get stored in the knowledge graph. Okay. And then we also have, so that whole document ingestion system's automated. So you just upload your documents and that just happens, right? And then also there's an independent process that happens in the background automatically on our server, which is it starts analyzing your documents and extracting entities and relationships from the documents and building a knowledge graph of all of the information that's in your documents. Okay. So if you're uploading, you know, corporate structure documents, if you have data governance, if you have HR documents, if you've got documents that are like all of the support tickets from your help desk, all that gets extracted and built into the knowledge graph. So you have this knowledge graph of your company. And that becomes important for the search part too, because we use that in the search. Yeah. And then the other big differentiator is that we build, everybody's talking about agents these days, right? And so when we first started designing this, when I first started designing this, agents weren't a thing, but what we were designing were agents. Yeah. And so, you know, there's different types of questions that you can ask, right? And so I have multiple categories, and there's general knowledge type questions, which is if you ask a question and the answer might be, you know, in the database, the answer exists in like say 20 different documents, but the answer is consistently the same across all the documents. What's the capital of France? It's Paris. That answer is the same in all of your documents. That's a general knowledge type question. Any out-of-the-box language model can generally handle those types of questions. But you give that tool to somebody, and they're going to love it for about 5 minutes. And then 5 minutes later, they're going to say, what if I ask this type of question? And it's all of the business types of questions, right? And so you've got those categories of those types of questions are quantitative and temporal. So like, how many times did we see X happen over the last quarter? And you're going to go search through all the documents, find all the times that X happened in your sales reports, disambiguate, you know, that event showing up in multiple documents and show, you know, this is how many times X happened. Then you add a time component and it becomes temporal. And so now you're looking for trends. That's what a lot of people want. Is they want to like do trending.
When you explain it like that, it makes sense, right? But if you talk to someone that has no even like slight technical background and they're asking these questions and you're like, well, it doesn't work like that. You're like, well, why not? Right? Like, I mean, if it can answer this, why can't it do this? And you're like, those are completely different. I mean, like not even close.
So you have to build the logic around the large language model to handle those types of questions. Then you have structured data. So if you have spreadsheets or databases, you want to be able to interact with those types of you know, to say, go look at this spreadsheet and pull out a trend of something, you know, from one of the structured data files. And then you also have multimodal. So, you know, you might want to look at images or videos, and we are not building that into the launch. That, you know, it's on a roadmap.
Right. I mean, MVP. People, I feel like more so just PDF documents and like spreadsheets. All is probably top like 80% of what people are looking at.
Right. Exactly. So, you know, anything you can extract, we're doing text, tables, and figures. So we're extracting that. And so, you know, for figures, we can have a multimodal model like generate a description of a figure, but we don't have the capability yet to like do embedding, do like image vectorization of the figure itself, but that's definitely on a roadmap because there's some really interesting methods where you actually make image vectors of the whole page for maintaining structure and formatting and stuff like that. There's a lot of research in that area right now. And then one of the ones that's really interesting and fun is multiple agent teams, right? So there's research that I'm using from MIT and Google and Yonsei University, which my daughter did her study abroad at Yonsei University in South Korea. And they showed that you can build these on the fly. You can build these multi-agent teams that will have a conversation about your question, right?
Oh, interesting.
And so like on the fly. So these large language models are smart enough to assign personas to different agents. So like the research uses medical, but applies to just about any use case. Yeah. So they had a general practitioner and an oncologist and a radiologist and, different medical team. And you would send the question into this team. The team gets built real time with different personas. And you pass in the prompt with all of the context from the knowledge graph and the documents that you found that have vector similarity matches to the question. All of that prompt engineering gets passed to the team, and they have a discussion about your question until they've decided that they've come up with an answer to your question, and the answer comes out. So our system, we really focus on the prompt engineering. So that's really what makes us different from most of the other products that you see out there, is the focus on the prompt engineering and doing that context optimization, because we don't focus on, building or training the models that answer the questions. Yeah. Because, we have an agent that like asks your question in different ways. And we have an agent that will, like, if you have baseline examples that you use to do baselining testing on your system, so you have question answer pairs that are similar to your documents, you can add those as examples to the context. And all of that gets passed to another agent that looks at the question and decides how to route the question, right? So we have this mixture, I call it a mixture of pipelines, all these different types of questions. So the agent decides, well, this question needs to go down this type of question pipeline, and it decides which model to use. Like, how powerful of a model do I need to answer this type of question? Is it a simple question that just needs a good summary? Or are we like, has the user said, here's 10 documents that are similar to something I've done before. Here's a new set of circumstances, new customer, new set of compliance regulations, a new set of circumstances. I want to regenerate this document to meet these criteria. And so now you need an agent that has tools that can go and build those documents, maybe write some Python code. And so we do all of the prompt engineering on our server, and then we hand that off to AWS Bedrock. And it does the heavy lifting as far as the large language model part of it goes. And then when the answer comes out, we have back to our server, we have another set of agents that there's some really technical evaluation of the answers that come out that we do. But then the one that makes sense to most people at the very end of the pipeline is we have an agent that looks at the final answer and looks at the original question and looks at the documents that were cited in the response and says, does this answer in these citations agree, and do they answer the original questions? There's that final check. And so all that happens in for a response that's a page long, that happens in 2 seconds.
Jeez.
If you're building a 10 or 20 page document, it's going to take a little longer.
Yeah.
But, so that's the main pipeline, and those are the main differences. And then the other really big thing is that it's all of these different components are containerized, right? Okay. So as the number of customers scale, you can scale your containers to handle the load. But also, if we get enterprise customers that are in very security sensitive industries like banking or healthcare or anybody who's just sensitive about their documents, we can take these containers and deploy them on your servers. So if you own GPUs, we can fully deploy it and run it wholly on your systems. Or if you have your own enterprise subscriptions to Claude or whatever, and you want to use that, but keep everything else on your systems, we can do a hybrid approach like that. And so I'm really not focusing on that enterprise deployment first. That's down the road. I want to do that down the road.
Yeah.
But I'm really focusing on the businesses that are looking to do cloud only for our primary business tiers.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess that was my next question was, customer base wise, what's like your ideal customer profile?
So I have done a lot of market research to try and answer that question.
Yeah.
And so it's a pretty busy space, right? There's a lot of competitors in this field.
Yeah. I mean, I could see it being, that's why I asked that question, because I could see it being, you could just go after enterprise people. You could, there's a whole range of people that, everyone is asking, like you said, and is interested in having this. So yeah, going from a, kind of a go-to-market strategy, interesting to hear.
Right. So that was one of the things when I first started looking at this and looking at the marketing standpoint, a lot of the advice that I was seeing over and over again was that it's a good idea to focus on one vertical. Like focus on one vertical and like get your first one customer.
Definitely.
Get your first 10 customers. And then once that starts rolling, then you can start broadening your scope, right? And so I did do a lot of research and I have done that. And so, our competitors, like probably our closest competitor as far as like capabilities goes is glean.com. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
I have not.
They're fantastic, right? But their minimum price is $2,500 a month for 5 seats, right?
Yeah.
And so they're focused on the Fortune 500 companies, and they've got a lot of them already.
Yeah.
Right? They're like 3 years ahead of me.
Well, and for their market segment and what they're going after, for those companies, $2,500 is like a rounding error, right?
Absolutely.
And it's like, whatever. Like, sure, try it out for however long.
So exactly. So I made the decision that there's a huge market in the companies that are 1 to 500 employees. Like 95 to 99% of businesses out there fit in that category. Yeah. And they might have one IT guy or a small IT team, or they might not have any IT team. They might outsource everything. And if they do have a few IT people, they might not have any AI specialists, right?
Yeah, probably not. I've yet to hear that. That is an interesting comment. I haven't even thought about that, of companies hiring. Like big companies, right? Like you hear Meta or Google or whoever, like Meta hired whoever people for like $1 million contract, or I don't know what it was, some crazy contract. But like those companies will have AI specialists, but you've yet to kind of see that trend continue into like small, medium-sized businesses.
The really big companies are if they're smart, they started working on this like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
But so the focus of Knowledge Site really is to make it super easy for those small to medium-sized businesses to be able to start using this capability at price points and at integration that's super easy to do.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that I learned from working at the Navy in a large organization and looking at many, many projects is that the hardest job of getting to that point is always the data management and the data prep, right? And I always called that step 0. Like you got, and it's quoted out there all over the place that you're going to spend like 80% of your time on a project getting the data ready to do machine learning or AI.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like I saw that over and over again. And so what I've really focused on is doing that heavy lifting for the customer. They literally just upload their documents, and all of the document ingestion, cleaning, extraction happens automatically. They don't even have to think about it. And then we start building the knowledge graph. And that's just like a bonus. And you can see the knowledge graph. It's really cool. And so I talked about how I was downloading Epstein files. So one of my guerrilla marketing campaigns is I'm going to build a knowledge graph from the Epstein files and build all those connections and build a website for that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to send it to all the reporters, all the journalists across the nation.
That's awesome. That's probably helpful. I mean, for so many people that are interested in that, but don't, they're not going to go through all the files and read everything or whatever. They just want to see it pop up as like headline of like this person indicted for whatever.
Yeah.
But that's not a bad idea. It's pretty good.
There was somebody out there that like built Jeffrey Epstein's email account. So you could go through all the emails and it looked like you were on his Apple email account, which was really clever. But, we're going to actually build the knowledge graph and make all of those connections and see like who was connected to whom.
Yeah.
And, who was the prosecutor on this and all that kind of stuff.
Jeez. Okay. God, this is in depth. And you've only been working on this since July. August. Yeah. And so from August until now, it's just you on the team? Do you have a team?
Claude and Codex.
Okay. Yeah. So single
I haven't written
founder.
a line of code.
Isn't that crazy you can do that now?
It's amazing.
It's wild. Yeah, we're going to run a vibe coding workshop here probably the next month or two.
It's a wild experience.
Just to show people, because I feel like there's so many people out there that have ideas and want to do things, but they're scared because they don't know how to code. And to show them, literally, I made something the other day, and it was like going in between Replit and GPT and just going back and forth between the two, being like, okay, this is what I'm thinking. This is the app that I'm using, like prompt it to make this thing. And it's like, okay, here you go. And it's like, copy and paste that. And then like, let me know what it says. And then you just like, literally you're going back and forth and you can create something so cool in like an hour. Yeah. I mean, it's nuts. And I mean, something that in depth probably, obviously takes much more time, but I mean, exceptionally cool that you can just bop that out. And I mean, objectively like no time at all. Because I mean, like back in the day, even a year ago, 2 years ago, that would have taken, an entire dev team a year or two or three.
Well, in the Navy, we were working on it for 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had, 9 to 15 people
team,
working on it. And not all of them were working on that project, but I had
still,
at least 4 to 5 people full time working on that project for 2 years.
It's insane. Yeah. What was that process like, going from working in the government, obviously working in data analytics, AI, like ML, all that stuff, in the team, very structured, to then now working by yourself, working on this project, no guardrails, no instructions, nothing. I mean, true like startup founder experience after being in such a structured place for so long. What was that experience, or what is that experience like now?
Two things. One is that the reason I made the decision to build Automate Intelligence and Knowledge Site and not become like a contractor, not build a company that provides services to the government, was I was burned out on how hard it is to develop in that environment. Yeah. Because of the security concerns, right. Because if you're developing an app for the classified network, and you have devs that you would provide a design and specifications, but they're constrained by what their individual skill sets are. Yeah. And we're always constrained by what our security constraints are. And you can't just like pip install something, right? Right. If you start doing development and you're like, oh, I need this dependency, you got to go over to the unclassified side, burn a DVD, go over to your classified system and upload it, right? Yeah. And that just slows everything down. Yeah. Right. So I was burned out by that. And of course, we did deploy a chatbot to the classified network so that people could use it for helping to write code. Okay. Specifically for that reason, to help accelerate that process. And so that was happening, but you still have the problem of dependencies, right? Yeah. So that was anathema to me. I didn't want to have to deal with that. I was like, I'm going to be free of that, right? But the really interesting experience that I've observed is, working with Claude and Codex is a lot like working with junior developers. Yeah.
It's interesting you say that. I've been reading a lot of articles about, kind of projections or predictions about kind of, overall the big picture, like where is this AI thing going, especially in software development, code writers, that kind of thing. And there's a growing concern of, you're not replacing the senior dev guys or even the mid-level guys. You're replacing all the junior guys. So then what happens in 5, 10, 15 years when you have your senior devs and the program manager,
Nobody replace them.
And nobody replace them because you're just using AI. I mean, that's kind of like the sticking point where it's like, you're not necessarily, you are helping, but it's like near-term versus long-term thinking. It's like, yes, you still need to train people. You still need to do all that. But then on the flip side, how cool is it that you can basically replace, I don't know, X amount of people because now you have these programs to use. And so I think it's almost an industry issue versus a personal individual issue of, okay, how do you, what lens are you looking at this with?
I think the smart companies are going to have to make conscious decisions to develop people. And I think they'll know that inherently.
I would hope so.
Like they're going to be like, they're going to see this as a glaring problem. They're going to be like, we have to keep developing people and put that into their plan.
And maybe not as much, right? Maybe you don't need a 10-person junior dev team. Maybe you need like a 2-person junior dev team. And maybe that will be the way that it morphs over time, is just like dev teams, that once were 30, 40, 50 people working on a giant project now are like 10. And you kind of split it that way. So
that's one way it could go.
Yeah.
So I want to come back to that in a second, but the main observation that I had was that, that kind of like in retrospect, looking on working on human teams, I realized that, to work with these agents, these AI coding agents, your communication and your specifications have to be very clear.
Yeah.
Like you got to think, because if you're doing like production level development with these coding agents, you have to put frameworks in place. Right. Because you're limited by context windows and all this stuff. So, you're constantly, if you don't put frameworks in place, you're constantly repeating yourself and it's forgetting things. Yep. So you have to be very clear in your design and specification documents. And I looked back and I was like, I thought I was pretty good at developing design and specification documents before. And I look back and I'm like, no wonder, it's like playing telephone with some of these developers. You'd ask for one thing and they'd give you, you'd ask for apple and they'd give you watermelon. Yeah. And part of it was because of the challenging environment that I had already talked about, and, limited skill sets and dependency problems and classified networks. Yep. Those constraints existed for sure, but also the clarity of the design and specifications. I learned a lot in retrospect that I could have done more there, right? So you definitely have to do that with these design coding agents. But the other thing that you'd mentioned too is like, what happens to these teams, like the size of these teams, or even with knowledge site, right? I think a lot of people are concerned right now, and a lot of your previous guests have mentioned this too. I know Graham Moorhead talked about this, of, what happens when companies start deploying these capabilities within their companies, or what's going to happen, right? And I think a lot of people are legitimately concerned about that. Yeah. But I've been thinking about this, right? And I think that there is kind of an answer to this question, and from a business economic standpoint, and that is that it really depends on what business you're in, and if that business has elastic demand or not. Yeah. Right. So if you have fixed demand, so if I can make one person 10 times more productive, say I have 10 employees, and I make all 10 of them 10 times more productive, I have a choice, right? I can keep making the same number of widgets with one person, or there's this factor called the marginal relative product. Some professor of economics is going to yell at me for getting this all wrong, but I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm not a business major. But and so from a business economic standpoint, if you have elastic demand, like you have infinite demand, you're going to hire more people. You're going to actually, from a mathematical standpoint, you're going to hire anywhere from 5 to 10 more people, because you're going to have the same profit margin and be able to make more money by producing 10 times more widgets. Exactly. If you have fixed demand, you're going to fire 9 people.
That's when you run into problems. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So if people are concerned about that, they need to look at, whatever job you're in,
Yeah.
do you have fixed or elastic demand?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I did take economics, and I should know that, whatever term. You're right, though, 100%. That is, yeah, it's a huge problem. I mean, I think for everybody right now, if you're, if you have kids, one of them is a junior, Gonzaga. I mean, that's got to be a huge topic of conversation. I work a lot with Gonzaga on more of the admin, educator side of things. And that's a huge topic of conversation of like, hey, we have a burden here of, all of these kids paying us a lot of money every year to provide some sort of value. Mm-hmm. How do we shape that when a lot of the majors and a lot of the job prospects probably won't even be here in 5 years, 10 years? I mean, it's a huge topic of conversation. I'm not sure that any university has necessarily cracked the code on that yet, but that's it's an interesting way to go. I've definitely heard a lot more conversations of people being like, maybe you don't even need college. Maybe, the trades have been a big
Some people don't.
topic of conversation. Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out.
We've definitely had those conversations. My daughter, when she first started university, and before that in high school, she thought she wanted to go into linguistics. My youngest daughter, Emma. Yeah. And she speaks 3 languages.
Oh my gosh.
And she speaks Korean and Spanish and English.
Yeah.
And she wants to learn like Arabic and Russian. And so she thought she was going to go into linguistics, but she's pivoted, I think, because AI has probably influenced her decision a little bit. Because it's like, if you're in linguistics, what are you going to do if you're not also a data scientist, right? Yeah. So she pivoted to environmental science.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a giant problem. I don't think they've figured it out, or I don't know what it'll look like, but it is interesting. What's been the biggest change or thing that's come up in your journey making this that maybe you weren't expecting?
Well, I think probably the one thing that, I was hoping was going to be different was that I would be able to move faster. Like I might, I was like, working on a team, you can do more, but it's also slow at the same time because there's all of the meetings and all this stuff. I was like, I'm not going to have any meetings. I'm just going to be like lightning fast, start whipping this stuff out. And which is partially true. My coding productivity has definitely been much more than I expected. Okay. But, overall the complexity of it and technology changing as I'm developing it, that slows things down. And I've had a couple distractions, side projects. I've got a couple other projects going on too that I've had 3 weeks here and 3 weeks there that I've been distracted on other projects. But, so I was hoping to launch January 1st, and I'm not laughing. Soon, really soon, but I didn't make January 1st. So it's gone a little bit slower than I expected, but so that, that kind of surprised me a little bit.
That's pretty good. If that's like, the one thing that's coming to your mind is like, I'm just moving a little bit slower, because most people are like, oh, I had the computers blow up, or I had a co-founder quit, or, all this crazy stuff.
I haven't pursued that part of it yet. I'm sure I'm going to run into all that.
Oh yeah. It's all coming.
It's all coming.
Don't you worry.
Oh yeah.
That's fantastic. Okay. Well, anything else to add before we wrap this up? Where can people find you, reach out, learn about this? We'll have you back on in, X amount of months to kind of get a recap and see you get an update of where you're going. But
so, I just have a basic landing page out there right now because, this is all still being built. But it's automateintelligence.ai. Automate as a verb. And so, my whole career with the Navy really has been about automating research and science. And so like everything I ever did in my whole career, apart from the acoustics and the science part of it, I was always obsessed with working on basically putting myself out of a job. Like I always wanted to make the analysis faster, because the amount of data that we had was, we had mountains and mountains of acoustic data, and we barely scratched the tip of the iceberg in analyzing it, right? We did what we needed to do to answer the scientific questions, but there's like so much more we could do, but we were waiting for the compute and the data storage to catch up.
Right.
And it finally started to do that, right? And so for a long time, I said that artificial intelligence wasn't a real thing, right? And so I said, there's no such thing as artificial intelligence. There's automated intelligence. That was my line for a long time, until large language models came out, and I was like,
Okay, not anymore.
we're getting pretty close to artificial intelligence. I just still don't think that we don't have AGI yet.
Yeah.
But it's going to take another breakthrough to get to that, like an architectural breakthrough. Like large language models aren't going to do it. There's going to be some confluence of a new architecture and probably quantum computing that's like going to really get us to AGI.
Yeah.
But I've really been focused on automation, and so we're going to have other products too that come out that are all in that category of automation.
Yeah, we'll get into the umbrella parent company next time. But
Right.
Awesome. Well, yeah, hey, appreciate you coming on. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thanks very much.
Awesome. Thanks.